Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm talking about They Will Kill You. I got to see this movie early at an AMC Scream Unseen, which is very cool. I always love doing that, and it is actually shockingly really fun. So, if you're new around here and you don't know, I'm trying to watch as many 2026 movies as I can in order to rank all of them from the worst to the best at the end of the year. I'm working on a recap video for the first quarter of 2026, January, February, and March. This movie will obviously be included in said recap, and I'll be ranking all of the first quarter movies from worst to best, so stay tuned for that probably early next week, around Monday or Tuesday. And without further ado, let's just jump right into the review of They Will Kill You. So, this movie I was very skeptical about because the trailer made it look a lot like Ready or Not, and funny enough, Ready or Not 2 came out the weekend prior to this film, so I was very skeptical. I saw them within 2 days of each other. I saw the Scream Unseen on Monday, and I had seen Ready or Not 2 on Saturday, so within 2 days of each other, and I was very skeptical going into this film that maybe I wasn't going to like it because Ready or Not 2, shockingly, I didn't really like that much, so I thought maybe I wouldn't get anything out of this film. But I'm here to tell you I had a really good time with They Will Kill You, actually. Let's start off with some positives, and this is going to be the stylistic choices of the film. This is a very, very heavily inspired, Quentin Tarantino inspired film. There is so much Kill Bill influence in this movie, it is kind of ridiculous. Even down to the creepy Tarantino foot fetish content, you've got it here. This is the most Tarantino inspired film I've ever seen, and for the most part, it works very well. In my review of this film for Letterboxd, I basically said that it's like Sam Raimi directed a Quentin Tarantino film. However, I will admit this movie does not have the punch of any of the movies the two of those heavy hitters can put out. And even though I don't really like Quentin Tarantino, I have to admit his films are very good. And I do think that this movie is not a Quentin Tarantino film in regards of the writing quality, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, I do want to say that the directing is very good. Like I said, it's very Sam Raimi inspired in its directing choices and very Quentin Tarantino inspired in its choice of just the way that the movie flows, the camera motion, the actual characters, stuff like that. The action sequences especially are very Kill Bill inspired, and the action sequences are another huge positive in this film because they are super well done. I was very engaged with every action sequence, and just in general, a lot of what was going on with the main character is very engaging in this film, and I really enjoy it. I think they did a very good job of making me entertained with the action, and that is kind of the most, or at least the kind of the most prevalent thing that happens in this film is there are action sequences. Now, are there other things in this film that are great? Absolutely. My other thing that is great is the practical effect work and the way that it ties into the comedy of the film. This is not a film that takes itself very seriously. In the same vein of Tarantino films, it does not take itself seriously in a good fashion. And in that regard, they use practical effects that look very good in a way to make the humor stand out in a very unique way. I'm not too keen on giving spoilers. I don't usually do that in these videos, but this doesn't really feel like a spoiler because this is explained within the first 20 minutes of the film. But basically, the main lady is up against a cult as shown in the trailer. However, the big twist, or at least the big twist that is told within the first 20 minutes that doesn't really fundamentally change anything, is that the cult doesn't die. So when you kill them, they just come back to life. And it's very interesting in the way they use this to add to the comedy of the film, where you'll get very good, silly practical effects of a head getting cut off or an eyeball rolling around. They do it very comically, and it looks good, and it's just really fun, and it's very entertaining. And that is the main thing that you're getting with this film, is you're just having a fun, good time and being entertained. There was a lot of me laughing at this movie because of how fun it was, and that's a good sign for a movie like this. Going into the mixed, I want to talk about the character work and the writing quality, especially towards the end of the film. I don't want to spoil the ending, but the ending of this movie is absolutely just outlandish and ridiculous and took away a lot of the fun that I was having with the movie, because while the movie is the whole time very silly and very ridiculous and very outlandish and doesn't really make any sense with any logic, the end of the movie stretches so far the imagination of belief to a point that's almost Evil Dead comical. And, like I said, it's Sam Raimi inspired, but the thing is that the movie doesn't really have anything going for it prior to the ending that makes it feel Evil Dead in any possible way. So when you get to the ending and you get this very Evil Dead inspired, over the top, demonic thing going on, it just feels a little forced and not as interesting as what was going on when it felt a little bit more human. Other issues I have are the writing quality. I do think this film suffers from very trivial dialogue and very disinteresting character work. The main character is interesting enough, even if some of the stuff she does makes literally no sense. And I also like the fact that she is at least a character with a bit of a character arc, but her connection to her sister, who is the main other protagonist, or at least other main character in this film, is not very interesting. And all of the other kind of side characters that are supposed to have depth or nuance to them don't really do anything in particular to be interesting in this film. Which is fine, because at the end of the day, you're here to watch insane action sequences and the maid lady just cutting people in half. And you get really, really good sequences. In particular, one sequence that is very long and drawn out is super well done with like a flaming axe. It's in the trailer. You've probably seen it. And it's a very good sequence, and I really enjoyed it. And even though the character work isn't great, it balances out relatively well. So there's that. And coming into the negatives, only things I really have to say negative about this film is that character work, when it is at its worst, it does get a bit overbearing, and it's hard to save the film with action sequences when it's that bad. That being said, as I mentioned in the mixed, it is very decently balanced, but there are just a few sequences, mainly in the earliest parts of the film, and at some point there's a bit of a drag in the middle, where the character work tries to take center stage, and there's not really anything going on action-wise to balance it out, and the writing quality just isn't good enough to carry that silliness, or to carry that poor writing quality that's very silly, and it just leaves a little bit of a thing to be desired. That being said, though, I did really enjoy this movie. I think that the action is some of the best action we've seen from a movie this year. Granted, there is a new film coming out soon that looks like it's going to be better in the action department and maybe even better in the writing quality department, so I hope that I get proven wrong, and this isn't the best that we're going to get from an action standpoint this year. I mean, granted, we're going to get The Odyssey, which is pretty much an action-adventure film, so there will be better stuff to see, but regardless, this is not going to be a very long review. That's pretty much all I have to say about They Will Kill You. It is a very solid movie, and for a screen unseen film, I had a good time with it. Do I think it's the best movie I'll see this year? Absolutely not, and it'll probably go down my list by the end of the year, but it is a fun movie. If you are a Tarantino fan and want to see something that's very clearly inspired by him and just is a good time, you'll probably enjoy this movie. And that's all I have to say about They Will Kill You. If you get a chance to go check it out, it's worth your time if you like fun movies. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.